And it looks like we are live. All right, before you say anything, let me go ahead and throw in this ridiculous intro I
Right.
created.
From the Far East to the Great West, the podcast that celebrates the red-headed stepchild of the kung fu genre, Bruceploitation. Welcome to the Clones Cast.
All right. So,
Wow, that was pretty impressive.
that was something. Oh, that lost us. Let's see if we can get us back here. There we are. Hello, Michael.
Back. As long as we have your face back.
Yeah, I'll warn you guys. We've got some hellish delay here, so it just means that Michael and I are going to try to give each other a little room to talk. So, on that note, how are things out in LA, Michael?
Just a little. Very hot. It's not as bad as it's been. It's nice warm weather. Things are picking back up. It's fun business. Things are good. How about with you in Oregon?
I'm in Portland, Oregon, for those who didn't know that, and I'm just glad to be back at the movies.
Yes, the movies.
Speaking of 1979's Golden Dragon, Silver Snake, this one was kind of a surprise for me. I thought it was a pretty funny movie, but also it had some great action sequences. Tell us about it's a dual directed thing, right? Godfrey and Kim Si-hyun.
Yeah, well, you can pretty much always get with these Dragon Lee films. The Dragon the Hero is an exception, but they're not directed by Godfrey Ho. Godfrey, when they would Kim would direct them, then IFD or ASO Asia would take them, put them into the Hong Kong market, the international market, and they'd stick Godfrey's name on. Godfrey's name was mostly for the Asian markets. The West didn't know one from the other. But he had at least an American name, and so they would slap his name on as a director. But he was never behind the camera on the majority of these. Enter Three Dragons. He did Dragon the Hero, as I mentioned, but this one specifically, or Martial Monks of Shaolin, Dragon Claws. There's a whole slew of the Korean ones. Even the real Bruce Lee was Kim instead of Godfrey.
Do you think he was on site, like, just to keep things moving? I mean, he was involved, right?
Yeah, he'd go over there sometimes. I mean, surprisingly though, there was always this. There's a get it. There's a what am I trying to say? Translation barrier. Like even Dragon Lee would have to go over there and use translators to understand what they wanted when he'd work in Hong Kong. Like when he
Right.
did the clones of Bruce Lee, Enter Three Dragons, and even the Dragon the Hero. It's like he needs a translator. So it would be the same when they'd go over to Korea. So they'd work it out. Sometimes they'd use English as their common language. Like Dragon Lee doesn't speak English still to this day, or very little. People like Casanova Wong do, etc. So they would work it out. But yeah, he would go over there sometimes.
I love it. All right, so Dragon Lee. We also have somebody new to me, Johnny Chan. How much did Johnny Chan do? I didn't see a lot of movies for him. Well, there's our delay. We lost Michael.
I'm on the road, as anybody can notice, so I had to realign myself and get into some shade. So my apologies. What did I
It,
miss?
it was good. You just saw me scrambling to. I was messaging you, and I saw a message, and I was like, "All right, well, we'll figure it out." Worst case, I was just going to do it solo, which is just not nearly as entertaining as somebody that has all the
Oh,
background information like you. So,
you're great. You're great. All right. So
uh,
where you probably just went over the background. All right. So go ahead. I'll follow
yeah,
your
no,
lead.
I was asking you about Johnny Chan. I don't think I've ever seen Johnny Chan before.
Yeah. John. He's only did two movies. This was his
Okay.
first, and then he did one called a wild one called Revenge of the Drunken Master. The next year, I think it was Revenge of the Drunken Master. I'm pretty sure this was like 1980, and then that was 81, and it was IFD also. They put it out, and And yeah, so he in that one they gave him his like starring opportunity. He didn't have a Dragon League, co-star to rely on. But it's a wild movie. If you ever find it, it's not that easy to find, but it's out there.
Gotcha. Well, who else in the cast do we want to note here? So, I mean, obviously those two, who I call the Blue Boss, kind of one of the main characters, the main bad guy that's chasing him around. He's notable, isn't he? I have him as Kong Du.
Yeah, well, you got Chang Dao. Right, right. They're obviously all the different pronunciations, but Cheng Dao, we've seen him in a number of movies, and then
Uh,
the other, the only China. I mean, I maybe get this 100%. I'm not sure I'm going to get this right, but there are only a few Chinese actors they bring him over. They got Cheng Dao, Dragon Lee's Korean. Um, he there there really wasn't too many Chinese actors brought in. It's mostly all the Korean troupe that Kim works with. As a matter of fact, anybody that watches all of Dragon Lee's films between 79 and 85, all of these guys are they just do them over and over and over again. It's the same characters. In fact, I think it's one of the things I thought I'm sure we'll talk about, but is that Martin Chu plays the sort of the trainer, the drunken master kind of character. He's usually our bad guy, and I think this movie is such an example of what a wasted talent he was as a comedic sort of relief.
yeah, totally. Yeah, he was funny. And what about the rickshaw driver? He just good martial artist. Do we know
That's
him from
that's who I'm
anything else?
talking about.
Okay, perfect. So that's Choi Min Kyu. Is that right? Okay, and
Yeah,
that's
or
what you.
Martin if you want to make it easy.
Thanks. I just call him throughout this Rick. Rickshaw. I got Boss Blue. I got Boss Red. I've got Rick, Juliet, of course, and we'll go from there with Dragon and Jackie, but or I guess Johnny.
Well,
But
it's easy to get them confused because of all the wigs, and once they put on those wigs, you can't recognize them.
that was amazing. I have both those clips coming up. First off, I don't know if I have the wig pull off, but I definitely have the hat pull off. We'll get there. So yeah, let's get into this. I liked the opening sequence with the motorcycle guys come in to fight his brother. I'll jump right in with our motorcycle clip there because this was hilarious. It's perfect.
Go back and tell your boss that I will never give in to you lousy bastards.
Just a terrific introduction to the film. You get an idea that there's going to be a lot of slapstick, and yeah, really fun.
Well, and you should probably note that this is the U.S. opening because the actual Korean opening, all the credits are done over Dragon Lee training on a man device, like a dummy thing that he's working on, and he's doing. It's sort of interesting because when you watch the Korean version of it, the movie opens up immediately in Dragon Lee, and he's in his tracksuit. And he's doing all this training, and he'll pause, and then the credit will pop up, or he'll mug to the camera, which he does extensively in this. There's a lot of Dragon Lee mugging going on. As a matter of fact, before we move ahead, I want to point out that at this point, when I saw the Dragon the Hero, I'd only seen I was in my full Dragon Lee love mode. I had seen him in the real Bruce Lee, Dragon Lee versus the Five Brothers, the clones of Bruce Lee, and the Dragon the Hero. And this is the first time where I had a chance to see the Dragon Lee that was comedic, more or less. He was the guy that's in this whole movie. First off, is absolutely insane. I mean, we gotta look at this movie. It is like a freak out LSD Dragon Lee movie in my view, from everything from the acting to the set design to the action. But and Dragon Lee again. But in my mind, what about this film is that Dragon Lee is showing to me, and everybody's got their opinion who's the better martial artist or what have you. But for me, Dragon Lee's at his peak in this movie, and he shows why I think he's one of the better of the brutal martial artists. I mean, he's totally nuts. He's a crazy man. he takes these elements of Bruce Lee and puts them on 11, as they would say, and so this is Spinal Tap. But anyway, this movie for me flipped me out when I first saw it because I had never seen him like this. He was always much more. He was crazy, but he was much more serious. So the movie opens up back to our original point is that over the credits of him training, and then it goes into this fight, which for the American version the credits play over.
Yeah, have you found a Korean copy that could potentially be scanned? I mean, because I think that I like that opening sequence as well. I thought that was cool. This one is interesting because it shows a second of that, like before the screener copy you gave to me, that the high quality version. But then it jumps to a weird fight that has nothing to do with the movie. The copy that you let me watch has random other people fighting. The Who's the Samuel Walls, right? Fighting against another. Yeah,
Right.
give it to us.
Well, it's a great example because this film they chopped out about 10 minutes, and in lieu of those 10 minutes, they stuck in, as you noted, a couple fight scenes from Enter Three Dragons, which
That's right.
Samuel Walls and Nick Chung and so that's all from. But that was IFD. They just figured, look, we lost 10 minutes. They took things out that, truthfully, and we'll probably bring it up, set up a few things at the end of the movie. I mean, this baseball bat gets set up more appropriately in the beginning. The egg thing, we do see in this version being set up with them doing the egg, so it pays it off. But there's a couple setups and payoffs that get lost in their cuts. But it wasn't so much action, so they stuck in 5 minutes of fights that you just go. They just assume you're just going to go, oh, okay, here's some guys fighting. It's just filler. It's like some of the worst examples of these movies where they would just think, it's an American audience. They want to see some action, just throw it in.
And that's the problem. I try so hard to identify all these people that I've seen, and we've done 40 of these. So I'm just like, okay, this guy's familiar. I'm not as scholarly as many of our fans are, but it totally throws me for a loop because I'm like, he's talking about killing his brother, and then we go in the next scene, he's going to actually, like, his brother's going to get killed, but it had nothing to do with that scene at all. Samuel Wells is just overdubbed saying that, I'm gonna kill your brother, or whatever. It was wild. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Well, we get into the big boss, which I thought was hilarious because first off, he had a cute kitty cat, and I just thought that was great. And I didn't throw this clip in, but anybody who's watched this, they know it's hilarious. He throws the cat at his own henchman, which I thought was just the best. I mean, you think he had it back instantly too. It was almost like a boomerang cat over there, scratched his face, and right back on his lap. Just, yeah, here we go. I also thought it was funny that they were
Yeah.
trying not to show his face, for the big reveal at the end
Yeah,
that
there's a
all
lot of
along our bad
just on
guys.
that
Yeah.
point, there's a lot of sort of mystery going on in this. There's a lot of like putting him at one point. We get the guy in the wheelchair looking like he's sick, like he's coughing, or we get the guy with the cat, and then there's a lot of, and then there's they're wearing wigs that they take off. That have the idea that we're getting mysterious bad guys to throw off who's the good guy and who's the bad guy. The way they disguise them is so. Either it's non-effective, like the wig. It's kind of like Superman. He puts on the glasses. He's Clark Kent. He takes them off. He's Superman. It's one of those kind of moments. Or the idea is it's like it makes no sense. I mean, why is the guy, as you'll mention, that's not the guy you were just talking about throwing the cat, but why is the guy sick in the wheelchair, coughing and acting like he's an old guy, but which we realize he's not. So
Right. He
it's
was the
so it's
cop
so
who was the
ironic.
cat
It's
man.
so weird.
Yeah, and it's awesome. My one of my favorite scenes, which I do have in here, I'm kicking myself that I didn't put the clip in of the dude taking his wig off because it ties into the last one we did. You remember when our thief of the gold shows up and he's got the big beautiful wig on all of a sudden, handing money off. This is for your mother, and this is for very funny. But yeah, it's the whole idea that that wigs are a thing, and the idea that he'd be
Yeah.
surprised. But I do have the clip coming up of Dragon taking his hat off and the guy going, "Oh, it's you!" It's like, yeah, that Kango,
Right. Right.
sunglasses, yeah, telephone guy. All right, well, there's the cat. So yeah, what this all comes down to is it's a big group of thugs, gangsters that are, extorting people for money, and that's the odd subplot to let us get to our fights. But it's supposed to be a protest, and we get right to one of the first scenes where, and this is our second clip. Well, I'll throw it on first, then we can talk about it. But this was Dragon's brother getting murdered.
This is what happens when people protest against us.
So dramatic.
So dramatic. Well, and in fact, that scene in the Korean version, the shot of his face that you just saw, where his eyes roll up into his head and the blood's coming out of his mouth, that got cut out. So you see the guy off frame stabbing, and then it just cuts to him hitting the ground. I think maybe the dramatic violence of his face was too much for the Korean the Korean market. So it does show up in the Western and the Hong Kong version, though.
It's funny we've had this conversation a dozen times, but the stuff that they decided to cut out based on, censors of the time, like a drill in the chest, it's so phony, and we've already had like horror movies galore where people are disemboweled and stuff. I don't know, but so scary.
Yeah.
All right, well, yeah, so now we get the outside fight. So we get the drill piece, and now we have the part with Samuel Wells. We get, which was just random. It was fun to watch, but I didn't get the brother thing at all. And it wasn't until I read something afterwards talking about that had absolutely nothing to do with the film that I felt better about it. So yeah, the bad guys come. They say we're going to double the rent. I think at that point we actually get to, which I think is hilarious, Dragon Lee getting the job as a cook. So how many of these have we had him as a cook in a restaurant? Yeah.
Right, and first off, make this is another example. The Korean version, the original version of this, sets up the ending in this that gets cut from the U.S. version, and that is he when he comes in and he gets the job offered to the guy's name is Moon, that runs the actor's name is Moon, who runs the restaurant. There is a scene that has where he points to Dragon Lee and says, what's that in your pack, and he pulls it out and goes, oh, it's a baseball. And he's like, oh, wow. And they throw the ball back and he hits it, and he hits him in the face. At one point, he hits the guy in the face, Moon in the face, and that's why he's got that patch on his face
I
the next time
wondered
you see
about
him. And you're
that.
kind of, when you originally see it, you're like, where do you, yeah, it's right, exactly, because Dragon has hit the ball in his face, but that's what pays off the ending, because Martin, the rickshaw, or Rick as you call him, who's there, he's there in that scene. So at the end, when we jumping ahead just to show the payoff, when Dragon Lee has Martin throwing the balls at him and he's hitting him and the other guy in the face, it sort of set that up in the original Korean version that we don't get in this.
Yeah, it also explains why the restaurant owner became a total dick between scenes. Like first scene, he's like, "Yeah, sure,
Right.
give you room and board, no problem." And then the next time, he's like, "What are you doing this for? Why are you singing? You're a piece of shit." Just like going off on him. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, so he gets the job. They go back off to the farm, and we get our first scene of Jackie, or Johnny. I don't know. I'll just keep calling him Jackie, but. Yeah, the fake Jackie. I could see why he didn't make it into more than a couple of these movies. Like he's only Jackie by like let's just say you were on drugs, took mushrooms or something like that, and you went to some place in Korea and saw a guy with long hair. Only then would you think that this was Jackie Chan. I mean, there's no
Well, and
Jackie.
you know what? This introduction thing is important. Again, just as a note, in the Korean version, you're introduced to him a little differently. It literally cuts to the field with the cows, and we hear a guy singing this like love song on a guitar, and there's Jackie, sitting on the hill playing with all these cows around him. He's playing his guitar, and then the girl comes up, the girl that he's apparently in love with comes up. They have a little, I can't remember what the conversation was. They have a little bit of a conversation. She goes off. Then a car drives up, and they ask him for directions. And he goes, they're asking for where the guy, where the family is, where the farm is. And he points to them, and then he kind of thinks, wait a minute, were those guys good guys or bad? I mean, there's some like a weird reference to that, and he just runs off after him. And then we get what's the U.S., where the U.S. starts off, where it's basically just the car driving up.
That's perfect because it makes perfect sense. He's eyeballing them really intensely, and then he says, "Hey, I saw these guys and they're thugs." So I didn't understand that reference at all. I'm like, well, so that makes perfect sense. And that leads to our next clip, which will lead on to where we go from there. This is Jackie fighting back against the thugs with his trusty guitar.
All right, then. Until the next time.
Did you...
Hold that! Huh? Huh? They're lying. I saw them in Wong's restaurant. They're gangsters. Gangsters? I remember your face. You're that bastard milkman, am I not right? You ought to watch your mouth. Go away and don't bother us if you value your life. You gotta be itching for a fight, sweetheart. You play requests.
Yeah, it was terrific.
Good stuff. Good stuff.
Yeah, that was
that
was
line.
great.
The you must be itching for a fight, sweetheart. That's the best part.
The guy's overdubbing this must have had a field day, but yeah, that was terrific. I don't know what he's shooting with his guitar. After the first one just kind of pops the guy in the face. It's not a big deal. The second guy wasn't ready. It sort of like went in his eye or something. That was awesome. So yeah, the gangster's demanding the farm, but we say no. I skipped a scene earlier. I should have noted it, but I didn't think it was important at the time. It was after Rick drops off Dragon. He goes, for some reason, to the gym where the bad guys are at, and he's like, "Hey, somebody order a rickshaw?" And they're all like, "No, get out of here, you suck." Well, it happens again, like right after this scene.
Right, and it's interesting because your interpretation of that later is that he's just scoping everything out, but like he's like doing this on purpose and pretending to. But if you listen to some dialogue towards the end, and I mean, we can't read too deep into these movies, otherwise you'll be like, wow, there's a hole in this plot. There's a point where he brings up the gangsters and goes, you know what? I actually found them at a gym or something. Like he acts like it was an accident later. Like he goes, I did stumble on them. I know where their gym is. So in a way, it's written in the beginning as if he's doing it on purpose, but then at the end, through his dialogue, it's as if he's saying, no, I just kept screwing up and going to just the right places to be mistaken,
It's like he has the worst business model in the world. It's just to run around with his rickshaw and walk in places. I mean, because when he comes to the farm, that was exactly it. My note was just, so he just runs around after, because he goes to the old man, and he's like, "Rickshaw, you guys order one?" And he's like, "No, like, who are you?" Yeah, it was great. Well, good. Yeah. So now we get Jackie heads to the restaurant. This was that scene we were just referencing where the owner's being kind of an ass, but he lets Dragon go out, meet Jackie. He's impatient with them just shaking hands and stuff. But we get to this great clip. They come inside, and it's like, I guess this is the first time we've had the guitar now as like a gimmick, and now we're going to have eggs as the gimmick. Right prior to the scene, Dragon cuts a bunch of cabbage with dual, like, what do you call that, Megan, a knife? You guys can tell. But anyway, it looks all awesome, and the guy's kind of impressed. So this is sort of like, it adds on to it. This is the eggs in the kitchen. Here we are.
Let's just a minute. Hey.
Yeah, and if you notice watching this, this is where Dragon sort of excels, I think, in ways Bruce Lee didn't really go, which is this mugging cop.
Oh, I think you call that a cleaver. A beaver cleaver.
Yeah.
Hey,
There
hey,
you
hey.
go.
Hey, you'll end up by breaking my eggs. Come on out of this. All right.
All right. Yeah, so it's I don't know. I feel like they didn't know what to do with Jackie because, Jackie's already doing a bunch of wacky stuff, stunts, all the good stuff that we know Jackie for. So they're like, well, I guess we just make him this kind of magical guitar egg guy. And the egg thing, which we'll come back into later on when he has his egg kung fu.
Well, yeah, and I mean, we haven't really said it, but this is one of those examples of that hybrid example of where Bruce exploitation was melding into Jackie exploitation, right? We've got Bruce and Jackie to the rescue. I think Golden Dragon, Silver Snake falls right smack into that there's a series of movies where Dragon Lee himself was becoming Bruce and Jackie mixed together. There's a little bit of him doing that here, except he's still fully in his Bruce mode. That example you were talking about, the showed, uh, is that to me is where it kind of threw me off when I first saw it, because like I said, all my presentations as a kid of Dragon Lee he was mugging, of course, and he was a little nuts, but he was very serious. And then here I'm watching him with the goofy chef and the eggs and the top, and he's making all the big faces, and he's like, all that kind of stuff. And that that was, again, whether you like it or hate it, everybody's got a different feeling about how they want him to be. But to me, that shows a little bit of his ability to relax and be, charactery rather than just staying with. I mean, he's nutty Bruce. He's totally nutty Bruce, but he's not afraid to play around with it. And this film is an example of him at his muggiest. I know it's not necessarily him. This is the director saying, "Look in the camera and smile." Let's do, like I said, if you catch the Korean version, watch the opening credits. He's just constantly doing a move, and then he's looking at the camera and going,
Yeah, I love it.
great faces.
It makes you wonder what a world would have been like. Let's just say nothing ever bad happened to Bruce Lee. There still would have been Bruce Lee clones. And how different would they have been? It wouldn't have been as sentimental to people, but it still would have happened. And Bruce would have had to deal with that too. Like, these guys are totally mocking me, stealing my style, you know?
Yeah, that's an interesting thought. I mean, people pass away. It definitely, cements their legendary status. But the fact was, he was hugely popular at the time and during his life. And you're probably right. That's exactly what would have happened.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, because Jackie had to deal with it. He must have been watching something like this going, what is going on? I'm Jackie Chan. Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
This is 79, so I know Jackie didn't he's out there, but he wasn't Bruce Lee level yet. That reminds me, what was the one we watched where they took Jackie Chan and tried to say he was the new Bruce Lee?
That's New Fists of Fury. That was Loewe's New Fists of
Yeah.
Fury, and it's funny because Mars, who's a stuntman actor, he told me that when Jackie was, I think he wanted to say he was in Australia or something doing stunts on. I can't remember where he said they were, but he said he remembered when he got the call from Insin Yoon to do Snake and the Eagle Shadow. And he was kind of, the only reason he went and did it is a low budget movie. He was just like, I'm going to go do it because I want to go back home. He was just tired of being out there. So he chose it specifically for that reason. And then that movie made him a superstar.
Wow. Well, cool. I love it. So we got our egg acrobat. Oh, no, yeah. So we're about to hit the rickshaw, which I think was interesting. So Rick, for some reason, is in the middle of the road. Jackie spins around the corner with his. And obviously, they had a real farm here. If I read something saying there was another title to this, something like the duel or a battle at Kung Fu Ranch or something like that.
Fight at the Hong Kong Ranch, I think it
Yeah.
was.
Yeah, so and you could see they really did get a farm. They had cows, there's a lot of eggs, they had those cool milk containers. They weren't messing around. And this movie's so full of props, and almost every prop gets used. So I like that. So we hit the rickshaw. He comes out and he thinks he killed Rick, and he's looking all around. And of course, he turns around. Rick's, of course, like some sort of magical sprite from Shakespeare, sitting on top of the car instead. And he does this weird little dancey walk across the eggs without breaking them. I thought that was hilarious. Which
Yeah,
leads
there's
to,
a number of the
oh, you're good.
there's a number of the training scenes that got cut out. I mean, not too much, but a few minutes where like there one you have one coming up where they start training where he falls and he's in the rickshaw, and there's another one with some food where he's like, I think he's trying to have Martin's trying to get Jackie to diet, so he's like eating food but not letting him eat them, and he's like, goofing around with him. So there's a level of this. They were going for the Jackie Chan in the Snake and the Eagle shadow vibe, sticking it in these weird corners of this movie. Him being trained, which really it's sort of like a little side story. Him being trained just specifically to get that Jackie element in there.
Totally. Yeah, like Rick at this moment, he hasn't done anything except walk around offering his rickshaw. He got dragging the job, so we don't even know he's some sort of martial arts expert yet until Jackie starts begging that he gets trained by him at this point. And that leads to a very funny scene coming up, which I do have a clip from. Um, so great. He connects up with Rick, and next thing we get to meet. I guess we're meeting the Red Boss, and I didn't understand it yet. So Blue Boss goes to meet Red Boss, and Red Boss is he's water skiing with just water skiing with a speedboat. Totally random. I was like, where is he? Yeah, and it just shows him out there. He's doing a great job, and he comes in. It's a great scene where he's just he's lying back, relaxing, and he's got like 8 women massaging him randomly as he's just sort of, oh yes, so we're gonna make our way through this. It's a very funny scene. Um, okay, explain how this scene fits in. So the next scene after that, so we get like the plot again. We need to steal this farm from these people. Um, the next scene shows Dragon going to the same apartment building his brother was in. He gets in the same elevator, but he gets off on some level and he just gets randomly jumped.
Right. I think the idea is he's supposedly getting jumped by a guy who is involved with the bad guys because he's watching him, and then he hits him and he says robbery, robbery, like he was like being robbed. So they would kind of pummel him and maybe take him out a little bit. Which again, this leads into the whole thing with Dragon wearing this goofy headrest, and he's like, "Oh, some kids, they threw rocks at me or whatever it is." And it's and like again, I'm pointing this out. First off, this film in itself, putting aside Dragon Lee's performance, is what you were talking about earlier, with everything from the eggs to the ranch to the water skiing. They weren't being lazy on this movie. This wasn't like, let's fight. Here's
Yeah.
a field, go fight here. Here's another field, fight here. It's like baseball bats and swings and water skis and boats and eggs and as stupidly lovely as the movie is, it's like you can't fault it for not trying to go 100 million yards.
Absolutely.
And even the color palettes are like these wild colors, and so in that regard, it's one of those Bruce exploitation movies you can almost pop in every couple times a year in the background, and because it's just so crazy and weird to just have. It's like I said, the drug induced LSD movie.
Yeah. Yeah, I also like the he couldn't just tell the truth. Like I was totally jumped by some guy and then I got beat up by a bunch of people. Like it's more realistic to say kids threw rocks at me, so now I'm like completely bandaged up head to toe. It's like, okay. Uh, I thought that was funny. Um, okay, so yeah, we get to the restaurant. I believe at this point, yeah, this is when Dragon actually kicks the thugs' butts in the restaurant. Lots of fun prop usage there, lots of damage. I always think about that. Like the poor guy could barely, pay for double the rent now, and he can't afford to hire somebody else. But now he has to replace all of his tables and everything else because they came in and completely destroyed his stuff.
And actually, just to point out, again, in the Korean version, it's cut in the U.S. version. But after that fight scene you're talking about, there is a shot where Moon pops his head up over the table and looks. And I think that's where it cuts in the U.S. version. But what he sees is Dragon Lee just after his display just calmly goes back and he starts picking up tables. He starts putting the tablecloths on. He starts fixing the leg of there, and so you actually see Dragon go back to fixing the place up. So there's kind of a neat element there. I don't know why I chopped it out, but that was in the original.
Yeah, why cut that out? That would make perfect sense. Instead, the next time we see him, he's getting fired pretty much. And we get the next fight where Moon gets, destroyed. Well,
Yeah.
Um, okay, so we got Jackie. Yeah, so the robbery, the restaurant. We've done. Oh, this was the fun. Rick is training Jackie, and he does the stupid run on the wheel thing of his rickshaw. I don't know why his rickshaw is now just taken apart and a prop for doing other stuff, but that's how it goes. Oh yeah, so I don't know the old man's name, but we just call him Old Man, which they call him that in the movie too. But the thug is back at the farm, and this time, the old man gives the sob story to the thug about why he really wants to keep it and everything like that, which I thought was very fascinating. But it's like he didn't realize the thug just doesn't give a crap. Like he's gonna take his stuff anyway. But then we get Juliet introduced the next time, so we would have met her probably originally with Jackie doing the song, and then we meet her out front when Jackie gets beat up, but now she comes out with a rifle and yeah, sends Blue Boss back home. And then we get to the next fight. So there's this, they kick the thug away, and now we get clip 5, which is the Rick and the thugs. Here we go.
Oh, the unicorn. Standing hard. Hanging hard. Flying fist. Turn and move. Straight punch. Master, I'm enjoying this. Straight fist. Back fist. Turning fist. Keep turning.
That's awesome. I looked up his shirt and that Baker Electric Cars. I'm
Yeah,
sorry, I'm a dumbass about cars, but I guess that was
yeah,
like a real company that made electric cars back in the 1800s or something.
yeah, yeah. I was going to note that. That was kind of interesting. Now we're dealing so much with the uh, electric cars, how it's back to that. And I was gonna point something I forgot to point out is that um, the scene before where we were talking about where Dragon Lee fights the guys in the restaurant. There's a really funny moment in there that it's a sort of almost like a self-reflexive thing on Dragon Lee, where he jumps back and he goes, he makes this weird like barking noise, like he's like what he does when he fights. And the guy goes, "What did he say? I don't know." And then they just start fighting. And I think to me that was almost like, let's take a moment where you do one of those sounds you always do, because in the Korean version it's there too. It's not like he's saying anything. He's actually making this high pitched squeal, and it almost felt like the filmmakers went, Dragon, you always do this crazy noise. Let's just have a joke where you do it, and then they say, because I can't otherwise figure out why they had put that in there. So I wanted to point that out. And then this scene you were talking about here with the bad guys and this Jackie Chan fight scene. This was the scene where the diet was taking place, where he was pulling the food from him. It was right before this happens. They're
Yeah.
eating, and then he comes over and does the wheel thing. Yeah.
Makes more sense. I thought it was delightful in that, it's all the classic kung fu movies, the idea that you use these props to strengthen yourself, but also he has a pine cone on his head he's not allowed to drop, and he drops it at one point. It was a very Jackie
Yeah.
thing of like sneaking it back up. But also the sequence is just great. Him using the bags. He doesn't realize it's it's Karate Kid before Karate Kid. He doesn't realize that he's using this tool, this implement, to actually start creating damage on these bad guys by hitting them with the bags on his feet and hands. So another really cool kind of like, oh, my training is good. I just keep
Yeah.
doing what Rick tells me to do, and I'm kicking ass. Yeah, it's cool. Yeah, cool. And that leads us to, I had something else there. Oh, doesn't matter.
Well, I'll
We
say something real quick. I just want to say something real fast because I know you're showing these clips that you've kind of cropped them a little bit to, I guess, to fit 16:9, but these are actually from the original 235 aspect anamorphically produced scope scan. So we're missing some of the information on the left and the right of frame, but it's still looking better than the 4:3 you're finding normally of this film.
I'm glad you mentioned that because I hadn't noticed because of the way I view the interface, but it's got to be something that this tool I'm using or YouTube does it or something. But yeah, because obviously it's pulled from the same source
It's
and then
it's it's making it fit. Yeah, it's making it fit our screen obviously because it's still cropping off the edges, so it's blowing up the 235. Otherwise, you'd have black bars at the top and the bottom.
oh,
I'm
exactly.
just pointing that out just technically because it's what you're seeing is not the full image of the movie. We're just getting, but it's obviously much better and much cleaner than what's floating around anyway.
Oh yeah. So yeah, Martial Arts Theater 3000 just pointed out. I wonder if it's actually Dragon Lee making that sound. I think that sound has something to do. If you'll notice, there's a couple of times like when he's fighting the big Korean bodybuilder in the gym, he sort of makes that sound above him, and I feel like it was some sort of chi energy to like destroy the guy because he kind of kills him with the sound. So if you follow that all the way back, it's sort of like he's finding his power out of this. Just- That's my opinion.
Right. Well, he well, no, and it's interesting because if you watch Dragon and you see these little crazy things that are now he's made these his own. I mean, Bruce Lee, not even Bruce Lee doesn't do what he does, but you can take it all the way back to Bruce Lee. Like, there's one of the things, I'll give you an example. When you watch Dragon, he puts his hands up like this and he shakes his fist this way. He's got them up in the air like this. And then he screams. And if you watch, what he's doing is he's taking the scene from Fists of Fury right before, I think one of the scenes is right before Bruce Lee jumps up and kicks Suzuki in the throat at the very end. It's Jackie doing the doubling. But so Dragon would take a moment from a Bruce Lee movie, whether it's the, holding of the fist like he did in The Big Boss and Fists of Fury after he's killed the guy. Dragon takes that all the time and he'll grab the fist, like control it, But I think these elements are just him just taking Bruce Lee up 10 notches, And he's not dubbing the sound. He's not the actual guy dubbing it, but he is trying to make these Bruce Lee-like animal cries.
And yeah, isn't that a funny thing that I personally, as somebody who, I saw Bruce Lee for the first time when I was 5 years old or something like that at a drive-in, I never questioned Bruce Lee making those sounds. I just thought that's what badass kung fu guys do. They wow, and obviously I think all the 80s, like almost every weird Bruceploitation reference and stuff like Police Academy and all that, that's really how you signify you're doing a Bruce, is by doing some ridiculous cat sound or something like
Yeah.
that.
Well, and there were ki as a Japanese word, but there were
Yeah.
yells and screams. You watch the earlier films, whether One Arm Boxer, Chinese Boxer, whatever, or earlier Shaw Brothers before Lee came along, and they were screaming and yelling as they were fighting. But he put that spin on it with the sort of higher pitch. He'd get into the kind of add that element. Once he did that, man, it was off. It's like that was his deal,
It was the coolest thing ever. Yeah, absolutely. I love that. All right, so we're back to the restaurant. Dragon's fired or whatever. He comes outside. It was actually a funny scene because the thugs are back and they were like about to walk in and go kill Moon or whatever, and then they see him and they're like, "Oh," and kind of like, "We don't have any problems," until he walks off, and then they go in and tear the restaurant up. But um, yeah, they see Dragon, they back off. This is our next clip. I have Dragon. I love this part because he gets in like we see this Westerner and a couple of these big buff dudes at the gym, and it's suddenly like they just pull up in a car, and it's this Westerner dude. What I liked about this fight is, and this is what I hopefully captured in the clip, is Dragon just kicks the shit out of him. It's very funny. Yeah, here we go. See the chi sound effect.
Yeah.
What I love about that is he really just goes to town. And I wish I would have connected those together. You see this guy in one other scene later, and he just comes in and he's got like a whole leg cast, and he's just completely, and they have him walking like extra slow, like he's so damaged at this point from what Dragon did to him. It's really nice.
And what's funny about that is it's such a clear bit of comedy, right? It's like the guy going, because he says some line about like, listen, I'm going home, and the bad guy's like going, what? You sure you don't want to stay? And he's like, yeah, this is too much. And it's what's so funny about it is the bad guys are usually, you're staying. Where are you going? You're not go back out there and finish the job. But he's like, okay, sorry, have a safe trip back. It's so funny.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a scene later on with that too. Oh yeah, there's a great scene where the current thugs that just, the ones in the leather, they're just getting their butt kicked by dragons. They just run away, and they find, I think, Red Boss, and he's just like, I think he's got the old man at that point. But it's like they didn't mention that they just ran away from the real fight, and they're joining him for the other fight. It's just sort of like, oh yeah, we're on. I love it. Um, I made a note of the MAGA hat lady, which is Juliet. Why is she always wearing that red hat? I can't make out what it says on it. I know it's not a MAGA hat, but it made me laugh. Yeah. Yeah, we jumped to this scene where Bruce is getting pulled back to the farm by Jackie because he's sure the old man's going to give him a job. Um, he meets Juliet. We get to see all the cows finally because I think we would have seen the cows with the scene you talked about with the song earlier with Jackie, but we didn't. So it's the first time we're starting to realize this is a real farm. Dragon's hired, and then Jackie realizes that Dragon and Rick are already friends. We get a quick call. Because we have to set the plot back up that the Catman is like, you got to go get that stuff. Followed by the great scene of the Westerner coming in so badly beaten. I don't
Yeah,
even know what he's. Yeah,
I was just going to say that it's when Jackie introduces Dragon to the family, because that's what you were talking about, right?
yeah. He brings him to the farm. Yeah,
Yeah,
he
when
meets the
he's
family
introducing him to the
first.
family,
Yeah,
yeah, what he says is, hey, that chick is like, I kind of am in love with her, and he's like, oh, don't worry, I'll help you, my friend. But that's so funny about the end of this movie, and I never understood it. I still don't understand it. I'm just gonna have to tie it in. The very last scene of the movie is the girl walks in after Dragon's killed all the bad guys, and Martin's like, hey, look, and then she looks at him and smiles, and Dragon gets a big smile on his face, and it's like, wait a minute, is he now moving in on her? What just happened?
yeah. When she shows up at the end, it's very like, I don't know. It felt like a David Lynch scene from Twin Peaks or something. It's like, what are you doing here? Like she just came out of nowhere. She's perfectly poised. You wouldn't know that she was in the hospital like 20 minutes earlier with shock. I don't know. Very nice. All right. So that leads us to, yeah, this is really great. So because Catman demanded more, we had the Western scene. We get this clip I'm about to put on. So the bad guys come wearing the same clothes they've been wearing. Blue Boss is wearing his blue outfit. The thugs are wearing their black and white leather. But they decided it's time to throw on some pantyhose masks so nobody can figure out who they are. It's like the wig and it's like the hat. Let me throw that in here right now.
Exactly.
Yeah, same bikes, same clothes.
Same clothes, yeah, same clothes, same outfits, but the netting, yeah, it's so funny. The mustache.
They're never going to recognize us.
Well, not only that, but they end up revealing themselves to them anyway. It was like who was gonna, you're gonna kidnap them and reveal yourself later.
Yeah, in the middle of the day, which I suppose they just didn't want to film at night because they didn't have lighting equipment or whatever. But it's very funny. Yeah, wearing their same clothes. They weren't in
Yeah.
disguise. It's fucking wonderful. Um, yeah, why are they sleeping during the day? Oh, I loved it. Old man pops up right away. He's got a katana, starts going to town. He's standing up for himself pretty well. One of my favorite scenes. He's fighting the old man. Old man's got the sword. Blue Boss doesn't have anything, but the phone starts ringing. And he picks up the phone and he uses it to block the sword. And then he answers the call like, "Hello? Oh no, something." He says something and hangs up. But I just thought that was a really funny little thing to throw in the middle of this very dire scene.
Well, yeah, and that's what I was trying to say earlier is that the choreography in this it's like a little just it's zany and it's some dated in a lot of ways, but there is no doubt that there was an effort to try to do something on the edge here. You know what I mean? And it's like you can look at it now, and as we do, it's not a bad movie like you'd say maybe Ed Wood's a bad movie, but it's clearly not a good movie. But in essence, it is a very entertaining movie from that perspective. And there's a lot of fights and there's a lot of intricate choreography, and it's very Three Stooges at times, in their version of the Three Stooges, with the eggs in the mouth and the and Dragon acting the way he does. But it's great. I mean, I actually find this movie so entertaining from the fight scene perspective for that reason.
Yeah, me too. Really fun choreography across the board. I totally agree. One thing that surprised me about the end of that scene is they had straight up killed they hung that dude from the stairway. So I mean, they literally hung him, and then they killed the other guy too. And yeah, it's funny because Dragon's like, doesn't this guy work here as well? It's like, yeah, he did. He's dead. Yeah, so they kidnapped the old man, they kidnapped the girl.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, they straight up murdered people, and now we get the police involved. And it's like the no not helpful police. He comes, and we know anybody, again, if you're in here, you've watched this, we know it's actually the big boss who's playing the cop, but we don't know this as people watching it yet. So it just seems like a useless police officer. Funny scene here. Dragon, Rick, and
Right.
Jackie are all standing there together, and they're like, "We should go." This is what you were talking about, where Rick's like, "Oh yeah, they out of a gym. It's this gym," and it's like, okay, and we've seen the gym, so we know what kind of sexy gym this is. But um, I don't know why they didn't all go together. That could have been, they probably could have saved everybody there. But Dragon decides to go by himself, and this is that funny throwback, of course. Bruce coming in working for the telephone company. So what that entailed is he had a briefcase, he had yellow glasses, and this little black Kango hat, and a very random one. Kind of comes in. Anybody here? Let me see.
Right.
Do I have that one? Oh, I
Which
do.
though, well, I was going to say, what's interesting about that moment is I mean, again, it's like you talked about. It's like you put on a wig, you look totally different. You put on a pair of glasses, you can't recognize you. It's like they do this throughout the movie. It's just like so absurd. But what's funny about this moment with Dragon is he comes in, he's got the hat on, the rickshaw hat that Bruce Lee had on in Fist of Fury, and he's got the glasses like Bruce Lee had on Fist of Fury when he was doing the telephone repairman. So he's sort of morphing two of the Bruce Lee disguises from Fist of Fury into this for 30 seconds before he pulls it off. And he just might as well have walked in the room and just been himself. It doesn't really
Right.
matter. But
Which is
I was
true
just,
with Bruce too, right? When
another.
Bruce comes in Fist of Fury, we're like, well, it's obviously Bruce. I mean,
Right. Well, yeah, exactly. I mean, it's true in Fist of Fury 2. It's a little more sort of thought out in that movie because in Fist of Fury, when he goes into the telephone repairman, he's just trying to check the place out, so he's hoping nobody recognizes him. And he's acting totally different. Dragon Lee kind of comes in and acts like Dragon Lee, where Bruce is like doing his Jerry Lewis in Fist of
you're
Fury. And
right.
then
Yeah.
when he's the rickshaw driver, it's him just sort of waiting outside to try and get information from Paul Way. And so there's a little bit more of a structure here. Dragon Lee just walks in and he's like pulling everything off and going into a fight. It's just, but it's probably where they said, wait a minute, we've been trying to work in a scene like Fist of Fury with you, so let's just do it here.
Yeah. All right. Well, let me throw in that scene and then we'll talk about it, because it's so funny that it's so
Okay.
not a disguise, which just keeps happening in this film. The girl's tied up there.
I'm from the telephone company. Really? There's nothing wrong with the phone. Be off with you.
Really?
But I have company orders. Julian! And you are? Boys, get ready.
A little finger.
It's wonderful. Yeah. And you are? He just, what you want?
Yeah,
Oh, that was
it's a good scene. In fact, I think, if I'm not mistaken, in the beginning of the Korean version of the film, when the credits are coming up, I think it's whether it's a co-production with or they're just doing a big thank you. I think the gym that gets so used in this movie must have been a pretty steady location. I think it actually has the name of the gym at the beginning of the movie.
Right, I noticed a lot of that. There's a lot of English titles for restaurants and stuff, I guess because it's Korea. We don't see a lot of that when we're doing
Hmm.
Hong Kong. I don't know. Yeah, I love it. So next scene we have, yeah, he fights all the people, but this is where he fights that big bodybuilder guy. I guess he was like, low rent bolo. And yeah, this is the one where he does kind of like kill him by looking at him on the ground, just kind of. It's like, ah. So I like that. Um, the old man. Oh yeah, so the old man's finally brought to the cat boss. Um, I love this. I wrote the note just because we know these films. I wrote they pretend they're gonna let him go because I'm like, well, they're obviously not gonna let him go, and I hadn't seen the scene yet, so I was waiting. And we've got clip number 9. So they pretty much tell the old man, they're like, you're fine. We're not gonna bother you anymore. It wouldn't make sense to anybody. It's like, well, you just kidnapped me, kidnapped my daughter, or whatever. You're beating everybody up. You killed 2 of my employees, but now we're good. Okay. And it's a great scene, the one I'm
Yeah.
about to play, because I included the beginning of it in where the old man actually stops and he goes, this maybe seems like a trap. Walks right into it anyway. So
Mm.
here we go. The clip's called Poor Old Man.
He figures it out. Ah, nah, nothing.
Nah, they've got to be truthful people.
This look on his face is the best at the end.
It is. Hopefully they'll just pause at that moment.
That would be. Yeah, you
And it
got
did.
it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Poor old man. um, Yeah, the whole thing actually changes pretty quickly there. It's like they didn't even acknowledge that they just murdered this old man. It's like, hey, Red Boss, tomorrow's your birthday, right? Here's a kitty. And he gives him his own kitty cat. And he goes to Blue Boss and he's like, here's a packet of money for the celebration. It's just so damn random. So now they're gonna, yeah, it leads into this
Yeah.
great scene of everybody just partying.
Well, don't forget when they pull the old man out of the suitcase, he's got no holes in the sides of his head. Remember? It's like
No,
he's totally clean when he comes out dead. There's no blood or anything. It was just tiny little pressure points.
I love that. Okay, so then we get back to the hospital. Like, I guess they just had to acknowledge why the girl is no longer involved with any of the plot, but she is being treated for shock, which includes an IV, and you can't talk to her right now. She's in shock. So, all good shit. Dragon finds out that it's these guys who killed his brother. I forgot who tells him that. Is it Rick? Somebody finally tells Dragon, these are actually the guys
I
who
think they
killed your
just
brother. Yeah.
yeah. Oh, it was. I think it was Moon. Remember, Moon comes up and yeah.
That's what it was. Yeah, I knew it didn't make sense that, but it was just like, okay, well, cool. They're finally telling him. The celebration gets interrupted. I love that they brought a casket. I mean, that's just the best. Everyone's partying, having a good time, and here comes Dragon and Jackie with a casket. It's like, well, this is not going to be fun anymore. A great "You killed
Well,
my brother"
it's
speech.
very yeah, it's very spaghetti western like Django with mixed in with a little Fists of Fury when he brings the sign in to break up the party. So it's got a little kind of element of those two things.
Yeah, yeah, terrific. And then comes a wonderful scene. So he gives this great speech. You killed my brother, and he's wearing the jumpsuit. So we're set to go. Anybody else who didn't laugh at this scene, you're crazy. But 2 of the guys, it's like, guys, get him. 2 of the guys, they jump on these like pool toys and just like surf across the pool. I have that one right here.
You murdered my brother Hanshek. Now you will pay with your life. I'm gonna help you join him. Get him, men. Men!
Yeah, baby.
It's
That
awesome.
green swimming pool water.
Oh, and then this scene where they all throw the clothes at their face.
Oh,
That was wonderful. Yeah, something
it,
about
well, that's what I mean is that the creativity of this is it wouldn't really make sense. It's not really practical. It's not really realistic. But the stuff that they do is just so wild and out there. You know that their brains were just going on overtime trying to
Oh yeah.
figure out some crazy choreography.
Yeah, it's funny. I could have put 8 more clips in here. We could just all try to watch the movie together because from that scene on, we get Dragon versus the Blue Boss. They use the playground set. They're swinging, beating up. The cool sprinkler thing up on the, weird. Oh, dang it, we lost Michael again. Anyway, yeah, I'll just keep going with that scene because Michael knows. But one thing I loved about this film is they really they used everything. Well, look at who's back.
Back and
Do you have
back.
audio? Oh,
Go ahead.
welcome
You
back,
just
Cotter.
go ahead. Finish what you're saying. I heard you.
Oh yeah, cool. Yeah, they there's all the props, including the boat, which is coming up too. Um, we have Jackie versus the Blue Boss, Dragon versus the Blue Boss. All these cool scenes where he just uses sets to kill people. On to finally Dragon versus the drill from earlier on that killed his brother. Um, Finally, Blue Boss is killed with his own drill, which I thought was very appropriate, right in the chest. Good. Dragon versus Red Boss starts up, and we get that cool scene, which I'll just jump right into it here. It's kind of a random one, but it's Dragon on a speedboat. It's like he'd been doing great up to this point, but the speedboat really threw him off.
Yep. This could not have been a fun scene to shoot, I'm imagining.
Awesome. Oh, there we go. Yeah, very fun. He eventually knocks him off the boat, tries to run him over with the engine. Some fear that we all had as kids that's not very realistic to that small of an engine chopping you a piece, apart or something like that. Very funny.
Right.
He does knock him off. He hits him with an oar. He gets back on, sneaks in the back. I really was surprised. I mean, we did need more competition because up to this point, Dragon's just kicking everybody's butt. But we finally meet Wheelchair Man, which is the cop from earlier, which is also the cat person, if I understood this film right. So and this is a great clip. He's yelling, "Where are you?" Whatever to the name of the Red Boss. He meets the old guy, and the old guy's like, "Yeah, I don't know what's up." It's just sort of like messing with him. But it's time now for the Red Boss to try to trap and kill Dragon in the same way they killed the old man. Oh, that I left out a scene somehow. Let me throw it in there. During the last big battle between Blue Boss and all of his henchmen, there's a great scene where Jackie does egg kung fu. You throw that one in here right now.
Right, and then this is an example of how much they tried to set up and pay off in the end fight.
Yeah.
I said the baseball bat thing got taken out of the U.S. version, but that's where they had the egg thing earlier.
How does it taste?
How does it taste? What a line.
Yeah.
I love it. Okay, so yeah, we get past all that. We get to the speedboat drama, and then Dragon gets knocked in the water. Red Boss escapes. He meets the wheelchair man, who I feel like he's given him some info, but he is, like you said, really hamming it up that he's sick. I would have been very suspicious. But he doesn't knock him down yet. That's coming. So we get this scene where he tries to trap Dragon the same way he did the old man, which I think is really cool.
How's he gonna get out of that?
That's badass. Thanks for nothing. So good.
That that jump in the air, that's a tough one to do. How he had extended his legs like that.
Yeah, seriously. That was great. Yeah, terrific.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
perfect.
again, you see really colorful, very yellow and the red and the blues and the, I mean, it's just so, and of course it's so over the top with the cages and the traps. And I mean, obviously he's in this balsa wood confinement. I think any 3-year-old could have probably punched his way out of that wood, but I mean, it's still, the idea is great.
Well, I thought of Chris here, Chris the Brain Bulletproof. Just I said WWF for the win because he does like this final like wrestling move and he does this jump in the air and he lands on Red Boss and murders him. But I liked that it felt like some 80s wrestling move.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, here we go. And then we get back to him. The wheelchair man was the big boss slash cop. So I thought it was very Enter the Dragon with the shoes instead of the claws, like at the end with Han. We finally get the baseball bat out.
Right. And yeah. And that example is right there. He's got the cleats on his feet. He pulls up shows his cleats. Then he pulls out 2 knives. The dragon's got the bat. It's like I'm just saying this movie was just trying to go as overkill as they could. It's like you have 9 weapons, you have 6, you do, and it was nothing was conventional. And that to me, like I said, I up to this point I'd seen just a couple of Dragon Lee movies, but he was like my guy at that time. And when I saw this, I was like, oh my god, what this was like like Alice in Wonderland with Dragon Lee, but I love it now when I sit back and watch, especially when you get to see a really nice transfer of the movie. It's like it's pretty visual the entire way through.
Yeah, yeah, it was terrific. And he does the same thing. I mean, he gets the scratches on his head and the shoulders. It worked really well, and I loved all the flying around he was doing. I mean, it was kind of ridiculous. I do have one scene from that fight, and let's just throw it on, and that'll expand from there. This is our final clip, so here we go. So good. The kitty sounds.
Sound effects, man. He's such a badass.
So good. So
Those
good.
noises are so exclusive to this movie. They're just so. And when he yells, you'll notice they get into an echo sort of chamber when he yells. So it's like
Yeah.
this. It's just everybody gets magical when they start fighting.
That was super cool. Yeah, and then you pull in the scene. I mean, again, that was enough of that. People will get this super release when it comes out, but it's baseball time. So he pulls out the baseball bat finally. And I think it was really great because then Rick comes and Rick, I guess this was a throwback to earlier with Moon, but yeah, throwing baseballs. Baseballs are hitting him in the head. Yeah, it was terrific.
Yeah.
Good ending. And then that big final scene, which I should have shown, but it's just so random. Juliet, like finally, baseball for the win. They beat the hell out of him with those balls, and then he's dead, and Juliet's just like, "What's up? I'm back from the hospital. What's been going on?" It's all resolved. We're good.
Yeah. No, well, and again, it's sort of weird because we've already set up this moment where Johnny's like, "That's my girl. She doesn't know yet," and Dragon's like, "Oh, don't worry, I'll help you out." So the ending to me always felt like, "Oh, Dragon, don't go. You just told him you were gonna help him out. Don't go stealing his babe now."
Yeah, absolutely.
I think maybe the idea is, I'm sure it was probably more like, look, she's healthy, she's fine, she's gonna be okay, and he's like, "Ah, good." I'm sure that was probably more the intention of it.
Well, lovely film. I really enjoyed it, beginning to end, actually. I was saying when you dropped out earlier, I feel like sometimes you're torturing me with history. It's like, any good teacher. You're showing me the bad stuff as well as the good stuff. Not everything can be this movie. Sometimes you get those other ones. And yeah, no, we've been on a roll. I think over the last like 10 of them, you've been really kind to me. We had a few, somewhere around 12 to 18. You're like, all right, we're going obscure on this one. I mean, so beware of the game of death. We've had Ramon Zamora and monkeys chasing girls on the beach. So this was a ton of fun. Yeah, I'd have to look at our list. I
Yeah,
mean, I've
well,
actually,
I
I
think,
think I've enjoyed them all, but there's definitely some of them that required a lot more effort as a Bruce exploitation lover, than this one did. This one was effortlessly good, and watching the
well,
copy I had.
yeah, we have to show both. I mean, we've got to kind of cover our bases and let everybody see, pick on there. Some people love the really bad ones, but I think for us, it's just a matter of going through. I mean, and I'll tell you, I mean, some I've only watched once or twice in my lifetime, and probably would never thought I was going to watch again. But for the sake of, I mean, there's a couple I'm still like going, okay, we're going to have to do these one day, you know. But I mean, I just find them as a whole always interesting. There's always something about them that's kind of interesting. But this one, like I said, I saw it not too long after it had been made. It was probably the mid '80s when I saw it. It wasn't in theaters. It was actually on TV. There was some channel. I want to say it was in LA. It was KTLA or something. I can't really remember. No, it might have been up in the Bay Area. All I just remember, I saw it on a TV, some TV showing of it, and yeah, just it blew my mind. Let's just put it that way. But today,
I
I
love it.
have especially now that I've had a chance to sort of see the whole thing and seen the original, scope of it. So it's a fun one to go back to. So I'm glad we got a
This
chance to
one
see it.
This one really hit home what you always bring up, the idea that the ones out on the web are so crappy in terms of quality. I mean, I want a Korean plus the American release of this on like a Blu-ray, right? Like this one looks clean, but it's such a shame how much of this is just going to get lost over time. I mean, we just have VHS copies because, you know. Anyway, more power to you, Michael, out
Yeah.
there finding these things and restoring them. We all appreciate it.
Oh, trying.
I know. Okay, so speaking of, let's head to news, and then, unlike most of the time, we'll get to questions because I know we've got a few here, and we'll do that next.
Well, well, on the film front, I've got a couple new films I've pulled pulled out of the mire. Um, a couple of film prints of some movies I'm hoping we're going to get a chance to do. And then, but also I wrote I don't know. Are you there? I can't see you, but
No, I made you solo so I could grab a tissue. It's the live recording thing, but go on, buddy.
oh, okay, good. I was just wondering. That's perfect. That's perfect. Okay, so I was going to say that I've also written a piece for Rick. And for those that don't know, Rick Myers kind of re-released his Eastern Heroes magazine, and he's going to do a limited run of it for I don't know how many issues he's doing. But I did a two-part article for him, chronicling my growing up being fascinated by Bruce Lee and what it was like to see him as a little kid in the theaters and just be enamored by what he did, and then to ultimately start getting to know him later in life. And so I've got a little short documentary that I've been shooting and finishing, I should say. It's already mostly shot, about that. But I wrote sort of a companion piece that's going to be in his next issue of Eastern Heroes. I think it's volume 2. So if you look up Ricky, look him up on Instagram or Facebook and pick it up. So it's got some good stuff. It's a great magazine, and it's a nice throwback to getting print magazines again rather than just digital magazines. And it's cool. It was a fun doing a big write up companion piece to the documentary.
Well, and I'll throw in a pro tip that you gave people the other day. You can actually find it on Amazon right now, with free Prime shipping. I bought my copy, which I haven't received yet, from them directly, so I had to pay some whopping $15 in international shipping. So yeah, if you're in America, US, or Canada, and you want a copy, Amazon is the key. But if you can't find it there, like I said,
Yeah,
yeah, their website sells it as well.
and I was going to say, and their first issue, I think, like you said, is available on Amazon now, and it's got Dragon Lee on the cover. I don't know what's on the inside because I don't have a copy of it yet, but I do know they got Dragon Lee on the cover, and then the one I wrote in will be issue 2 and issue 3. So, and I found
Love
actually I
it.
found a bunch of really neat trailers. Neat sound like a looking neck. Neat trailers. I found some really cool trailers on 35 millimeter and a couple negatives too that I'm hoping to get transferred. And either I'm going to I'll let we'll announce it through this or just on the pages if I'm just going to throw them up on YouTube or if they're going to come out on a release or something like that. But
Oh man, how
found
cool
some
would
great
that
ones.
be?
Found some
I
really
mean,
cool
even
ones. That
extras for
some that
just,
I've never even
eh,
some I've
yeah,
never
that'd be
seen.
amazing. I love that. Yeah, and I mean, gosh, I'm sure I speak for everyone here. We would take what didn't it exist before, but not Bruceploitation related, but just old kung fu trailers as a Blu-ray release. I think I saw that somewhere. I've never gotten to see it, but I'd love to see that for all these films, just how they were
Yeah,
advertised. It would be amazing.
yeah. It's fun. Most of the ones that I just found are the U.S. versions, but it's kind of interesting U.S. versions, and then find the Hong Kong versions, or even Korean if you can find them. Those are a little harder to find, but the Hong Kong versions, and sort of kind of see what they're trying to sell because they're not the same. They're always different. They sell different aspects of the movie
Yeah.
to that like there's the Hong Kong, like for instance I've got a Hong Kong trailer and a US trailer to Slaughter in San Francisco, and it's interesting because in the Hong Kong version they try to pitch the Lo Wei angle, and they even say Bruce Lee was offered or was in consideration for A Man Called Tiger, which was a Jimmy Wang Yu movie that Lo Wei did, but because the film Slaughter in San Francisco is called The Yellow-Faced Tiger, I think in the advertising they were trying to promote it as that was the movie that Bruce Lee was offered because it says the movie meant for Bruce Lee, shot by his director of Fist of Fury, and that's what the Hong Kong version of the trailer. The U.S. version of the trailer is pretty much all like pushing Chuck Norris and his aspect in the movie, And so, anyways, it's always fun to look at them and compare the two.
Yeah, I love that. That's funny. Yeah, because he was barely in it. Okay, well, let me go ahead. I'm going to scroll back up. I'm going to try to just go through and see what we've got here. One of the first questions is, hey, when's this going to come out? When's your copy going to come out of this movie?
When is the question? When is the version
Golden
you were
Dragon.
showing the clips from coming out? Is that
Uh,
what you're?
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Gotcha. Well, and I always have to be careful because every time whether we do it on this show or whether I'm, having them put stuff up on the pages, showing some clips, some of these films are not necessarily guaranteed for release, at least yet. That's always my goal. My goal is always to get them to come out, but sometimes you got to understand, I'm sort of like a lone entrepreneur where I would go out and I will spend my own money and I will buy these films, I will track them down, and then I go to certain companies that, whether it's my own Pro River that I co-founded or different ones, and say, hey, I got this, I think it'll be a good sale. Yeah, because we always understand that it's like a lot of time and money that go into these things to make them at least look halfway decent. But in the case of this one we just did, um, it is going to come out. It definitely is. And my guess is I don't have the exact release date, but it's going to be announced before the end of the year. So I'm going to say the beginning of the year, like January, February. But I'm not positive. It could be a little earlier, but we'll be announcing it though, not too much longer.
Yeah, yeah. Are we going to get the opportunity to do a commentary track?
Yeah, I actually the funny thing is part of the reason I'm sitting here with the is that we're releasing these films, but we're not just getting the best. We're trying to load them up. We've got interviews we're trying to get on there. We've got other information we're trying to get on there, and you have no idea how many commentaries I've got planned right now that I have to do for these different releases. I mean, there's a lot.
Yeah,
And
I love it.
it's like you and I can sit here and go back and forth sometimes when we talk about these films with these commentaries. So it's dead. You're literally got to talk straight through. Because for me, when I listen to commentaries, sometimes, and it's hard. I mean, I get it, but sometimes you listen to people and then they just they kind of run out of things to say and they start talking about things that are like related off here, off here. I like to try to be as specific about the movie as possible. So as you're watching it, you're picking up that piece or that piece or that piece. I'm trying to
Yeah.
grab a couple of the filmmakers not necessarily for this Golden Dragon, Silver Snake, but trying to find some of the filmmakers on some of the movies. We've got a couple of them, and we're trying to tie it all together. So yeah, you'll get commentaries. I can't say specifically which ones. I know a few for sure, but there's a lot,
Yeah,
which is
that's
my way
fun.
of indicating there's a lot of movies coming out.
So many of these. I mean, I'd watch them a bunch of times just to hear some of that background. Yeah, so always cool stuff. All right, well, Glenn Savage, he asked if we're going to be covering Storming Attacks, aka Image of Bruce Lee.
Yeah, I think that that one actually. It's funny we're talking about it because I just found a 35 millimeter print of it and it's pretty beat up. So I was trying to decide whether to invest in it, but um, yeah, I think that's a good one to do. I actually have had that in my brain. I wasn't sure if it was going to be the next one, but I think it should be in the next couple ones. But I'm happy to make it the next one. Bruce Lee.
I love it. Yeah, if you get to choose that right now, so.
All right, well we'll do it. Let's do it.
All right. Well, Martial Arts Theater 3000 asked, I think more for you, Michael. Have you seen Blazing Ninja, Godfrey Ho movie that mixes Bruceploitation with World War II era stuff?
Yeah, I did see it a long time ago. I haven't watched all of Godfrey's ninja movies. I mean, most of the stuff that I was mostly fascinated by but there's a whole fan base for the ninja ones. I mean, the ninja ones with Harrison and all those guys, they're just so like crazy out there. But yeah, I have seen it, and it's another definitely wild movie for sure. And he's right. It does kind of tie into what we do. If even if it might be on the periphery, it definitely fits in there. I mean, the truth is, I would like to try to dig up, and I have been for the last year and a half. So always open to hearing people's input on this. Is finding some more of the Zamora stuff. We did Game of Death, but there's a couple like Fish of Fury and a few others that might be worth doing.
Oh, I love it. A few people pointed out trailers of Fury. Ian Lee talked about a few DVDs that a little hard to get through, but after about an hour of watching trailers, you start to get in the mix. I suggest anytime you're doing that, add alcohol. I mean, it's the thing that balances all. I know that doesn't work for you, Michael, but yeah, I don't know. For Ian, I think you could probably relate to that. Just yeah, you power through with the help of chemicals. Uh,
Yeah, that's
uh,
true. I did. I for Severn Films, we did do a whole. I mean, those mostly probably have seen it, but there's a great Blu-ray release just of all trailers. They had found these trailers in what was once a movie theater, a Chinese movie theater, but then was a Chinese restaurant, and they found these stack of trailers, and they transferred
Holy cow.
them, and I came out. And was brought in to do the commentary on the Bruceploitation stuff, but it's there's about 5 or 6 of them in there, but the majority of it's just a regular kung fu movie. So it's a good one. It's a good one to watch if you like
It's
trailers.
amazing. Glenn also asked, I don't know how this fits, but when will the Bruce Lee documentary be getting released? Is there a Bruce Lee documentary?
What it is I'm cutting when the times I went to visit him, I was cutting, or I wasn't cutting, but I was anticipating doing a documentary on my growing up, as I mentioned earlier,
Yeah.
on his movies, and then getting a chance to work with him. So that I'm in the middle of editing it. I was actually. It's funny because I just had somebody approach me about trying to get it into a film festival, even in a rough state at the end of this next month. But I'm not going to have it done to where I
Wow.
want it. It's going to be about 25 minutes long, so it's going to be a little short documentary. Um, I'm entering the festivals, but there is a couple of documentaries I've been doing that will be on releases on some of these Blu-ray releases. There's another one I'm working on. It's a smaller one about the film, about these films and the theaters to be in and what happened to them, and it's pretty cool. I mean, it's a nice history of kung fu movies in the theaters. So there's a couple things coming out, but that's what he's talking about.
Yeah, and we're all so excited about all the stuff you have. You would like sort of have all of this great footage, knowledge stuff, plus the documentary and everything, and just can't come quickly
Well,
enough. But
it's like I just found out that Bruce Lee had shot all this Super 8 footage on his movie sets, but I don't have it. Bruce Lee doesn't have it. Somebody else has it, and they were going to do something with it, and then they
Oh,
didn't. And now
cool.
I was saying, just release it. If you're not going to do it, or give it to me, I'll put it in something, or I'll just throw it on some of the releases. But it's like, it's frustrating because it's like it's one of those things. And and I'm sure it's frustrating for all of us, but when you just know about something exists and you want to get it out, because I just want to get stuff, everything I own, everything that I have, everything that I've discovered or purchased, I want to get out for everybody to see. And some people, they just kind of sit on it, so it's like, oh, when I was hearing about this, I was like, God, there's like tons of this footage that I want to get it out.
How cool would that be? All right. Well, Sean Cavender was wondering. You already mentioned which one we're probably doing next. But again, I'll always follow up with you on that. What about? Well, he'd love to see Edge of Fury or Return of Bruce. I don't know either of those,
Yeah,
but
Edge of Fury. Yeah, Edge of Fury is a good one. It's Lee Nam, Kurata's in it. When we went out to Hong Kong a couple trips ago, we spent some time with both of them and got interviews about the movie too, which is kind of cool. Return of Bruce. It's good to know people. It's kind of nice to hear some of the titles people are enjoying. I just found a nice print of that film, and it's a weird Bruce Lee one, but it's cool. It's definitely cool. But yeah, I think we'll get to them. I think they're grabbing they're everything you've named so far is one that's been in my head about us doing. So,
all right. Well, how about Fletch Kelman was asking Deadly Strike?
Deadly Strike. Oh yeah. Yeah. That's another. There's like Magnum Fist. It's another. Bruce Lee, the Invincible, which is sort of a prequel to Fists of Fury that Bruce Lee was in. We still got a good chunk to do. So.
Love it. All right. Well, let me throw on. I don't know. This chat thing's terrible. I did see a question from Martial Arts Theater on when you and I started collaborating. It's a funny story. I was doing Cinema Bushido, and I was just grabbing random people who were into movies, like somebody who was really into RoboCop. I said, "Well, come on the podcast. Let's talk about RoboCop." And we did. I think we did Fist of
Big
Fury.
Boss. Right?
Maybe it was Big Boss. Yeah, I
Yeah.
remember at the time. My co-host on that, Lee Van Cleef, he's just like. I remember he's just like, "Oh my God, this is ridiculous! Like this guy knows so much about this movie, and he knows so much about Bruce Lee. Like we've upped our game. Like because everyone else comes in. Like let's say I got somebody who really loved something like RoboCop. They're just like they're reiterating all the same stuff we know. But that moment was definitely a moment where it was like, now we're really talking about a freaking movie, and I love Bruce Lee so much, and yeah, covering those movies. I think you covered at least three of them on Cinema Bushido. So if anybody's ever bored and there's no clone casts around, you can always go look at Cinema Bushido and just look at the Bruce Lee movies. And I think Michael and I and Lee did three of them. So
Yeah, we did. I think we did. We did two. I know. I think we did Big Boss and Fist of Fury, which is funny because anybody also interested for the Criterion Reflections, which is a podcast on all the Criterion movies. I did Big Boss and just did Fist of Fury, and we're about to do Way of the Dragon pretty soon. I think they asked me to come on and do it. And then I actually just wrote an essay that's coming out in a book on Fist of Fury about Fist of Fury from the point of view of a filmmaker. About how Lo Wei and Chris Chen, the cinematographer, shot the movie. But yeah, you should definitely go back and look up Cinema Bushido because I remember we had a good time on those. That was fun.
those are a lot of fun. And I'm glad you brought that one up because that's news too. I mean, that Criterion cast is just from last month, and I am embarrassed to say I haven't listened to it yet. But Jana, my partner, was like,
It's okay.
she was looking at something, and she's like, "Oh, look, they did like Fist of Fury or something." And I'm like, and guess who's in it? And she looked at it, Michael. I was like, yeah, not enough time in the world for everything. I'll be on it by next time, and we'll go for it.
Oh
Um,
man.
if I missed any, you guys just throw me questions. You know what? I can always collaborate with Michael, and we can get you answers out on the Twitter or whatever. So rock and roll. Anything else you want to throw out there, Michael?
Well, maybe we'll do. What we should just do is since all these questions. We'll just why don't you and I'll just send you four like we did before. I'll send you 4 possibilities, and then we'll do a little. You can do a poll thing, and then
Oh, that's a great
we'll go with
idea.
the one that gets the
Yeah.
most votes.
We'll leave it up to you guys. We'll do a poll and then we will go down the list, based on the first ones followed to the end ones, and that'll be our order or whatever, something like that. Cool. Well, as always, it's a pleasure,
Sounds
Michael.
good.
This was a great one, and thanks everyone for
Yeah, it
joining.
was
This is
fun, man.
super cool. I'm really liking the new format. I love that we get to interact with you guys, and yeah, we'll keep this going just like this. I'll edit this off into a
Yeah,
podcast. It'll be out there on iTunes and stuff, and 1 month from now, we'll be doing the next one.
yeah. Thank you guys, everybody, for tuning in live. It's very cool, and I appreciate the support. And yeah, this is fun. I love talking some Dragon Lee in a parking lot. It's great.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You're always doing that. It's awesome. We need to get back to your storage facility again. You can show off all of your toys. Michael's got a lot of
Yeah,
Bruce stuff,
maybe
so.
maybe what I'll do is every time we do one of these podcasts, I'll grab a couple things from my collection and I'll just have them on hand. I mean, the reason I'm in my car and usually end up in my car is because I'm always driving around working and stuff. So it's like I gotta pull over, but I'll make sure to plan so I can do it. We'll do a show and tell. We got to come up with a good name for it, like Bruce and Tell or something. I don't know, but
I like
I'll
it.
start thinking about that at a time.
All right. Till next time, everyone. Thank you so much. Bye bye.
All right, bye guys.